I threw away my shampoo for 30 days, and what I saw under a microscope horrified my dermatologist. Until day 14 changed absolutely everything. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today, we are diving deep into a fascinating, slightly gross, but honestly incredibly eye-opening experiment that is currently taking the health and wellness world by storm. We are talking about the No-Poo method. What actually happens to your scalp, your hair, and your overall health when you completely stop using shampoo and wash your hair exclusively with water for an entire month? For literally decades, giant cosmetic corporations have sold us this idea that a perfectly clean, squeaky, sudsy head of hair is the ultimate standard of human hygiene. We have been totally conditioned to believe that the very second our hair gets slightly oily, we have to nuke it with harsh chemical detergents. But what if I told you that shampoo is actually a super modern invention? Seriously, liquid synthetic shampoo was only introduced to the masses in the 1930s. Before that, humans survived, thrived, and had magnificent thick heads of hair without ever touching a single bottle of sulfates, parabens, or artificial fragrances. So, being the human guinea pig that I am, I decided to put my own scalp on the line. I fully committed to the water-only washing method for 30 consecutive days. No cheating, no dry shampoo, just me and the tap water. The results were nothing short of shocking, and the actual science behind why our bodies react this way is absolutely mind-blowing. Let us start by breaking down the biology of your scalp for a second. Your skin is covered in these tiny little things called sebaceous glands. These glands secrete a waxy, oily substance called sebum. Now, society tells us sebum is gross, but sebum is not your enemy. In fact, it's literally nature's absolute perfect conditioner. It waterproofs your hair, it protects it from environmental damage, and it maintains an acidic environment, which science calls the acid mantle. This acid mantle is crucial because it physically prevents harmful bacteria and nasty fungi from setting up camp on your head. When you use conventional shampoos, particularly the cheap ones loaded with sodium lauryl sulfate, you're violently stripping away this protective sebum layer. Your scalp hits the massive panic button. It realizes it is completely dried out and aggressively overcompensates by pumping out massive amounts of oil to rebuild its lost defenses. This right here creates a toxic, vicious cycle. You shampoo, your scalp dries out, it overproduces oil in a panic, your hair feels insanely greasy the very next day, and so you shampoo again. You basically become a total slave to the bottle. Breaking this cycle is the entire core philosophy of the water-only method. But let me keep it 100% real with you. The transition period is absolutely not for the faint of heart. The first week is an absolute nightmare. When I stopped using shampoo on day 1, my scalp did not get the memo. It was still pumping out massive amounts of sebum, totally expecting my usual daily chemical stripping. By day 3, I was in hell. My hair felt heavy, flat, and coated in this thick, gross layer of wax. It looked permanently wet. I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified to go out in public. I wore a beanie for like 4 days straight. Here's the thing. The mechanical action of just rinsing with water does not dissolve sebum because, as we all learned in 3rd grade science, oil and water do not mix. If you do not mechanically remove this excess oil, it just sits there. This is where the first real scientific secret of water-only washing comes into play. You have to use mechanical friction and water temperature. To even survive the first week, I had to completely master the technique of scritching and preening. Scritching involves using the soft pads of your fingers, absolutely not your nails, guys. Do not scratch your scalp raw, to vigorously massage the scalp under warm water. The warmth of the water softens the sebum, making it way more pliable, while the heavy massage loosens all the dead skin cells and daily dirt. Then comes preening, which involves pulling that natural oil down the shaft of the hair to naturally condition your dry ends. Plus, a boar bristle brush became my absolute best friend. Unlike those cheap plastic brushes, natural boar bristles are uniquely designed by nature to absorb human sebum and distribute it perfectly evenly from the root all the way down to the tip. By the end of week 1, my hair was still incredibly greasy, but plot twist, it was surprisingly super soft. Moving into week 2, things got super weird. I entered the itch and flake phase. Without the harsh detergents, the microbiome of my scalp was undergoing a massive, chaotic recalibration. Our scalps are home to a very delicate balance of bacteria and yeast, specifically this one yeast called Malicenia. This yeast literally feeds on sebum. Because I had an absolute abundance of oil just sitting on my head, the yeast threw a massive frat party. They had an absolute feast, leading to a temporary overpopulation. This resulted in mild, annoying itchiness and an alarming amount of white flakes falling onto my shoulders. Now listen closely. These were not your standard dry dandruff flakes. These were nasty little clumps of dead skin cells and oxidized sebum. When I looked at it under a microscope, it looked like a literal microscopic war zone. The healthy microbes were aggressively fighting to establish dominance over the opportunistic yeast. A lot of people quit the experiment during this exact phase because it feels super unhygienic and it's just physically uncomfortable. However, from a strictly biological standpoint, this is the most crucial detoxifying moment of the entire process. The acid mantle is slowly rebuilding its natural pH, which usually sits somewhere around 4.5 to 5.5. If you can just push through the intense itchiness with thorough daily water massages and rigorous boar bristle brushing, you eventually reach the promised land. By day 15, something magical happened. The transition was palpable. My sebaceous glands finally woke up and realized that the daily chemical assault had permanently stopped. They began to rapidly down-regulate production. The frantic, crazy overproduction of oil slowed to a steady, perfectly balanced trickle. My hair stopped looking like an oil slick from a bad environmental documentary and started looking normal. Actually, no, it was way better than normal. The entire texture completely changed. My individual hair strands felt noticeably thicker, stronger, and way more resilient. The natural oils had fully coated the cuticle, laying it perfectly flat and reflecting the light in a way that those artificial, expensive silicones could only dream of imitating. Let's nerd out on the science of hair structure for a second. A single hair strand is kind of like a roof with overlapping shingles, which we call the cuticle. Shampoos brutally open the cuticle, making the hair porous, weak, and frizzy. Conditioners then swoop in and use artificial silicones to chemically glue them back down. By day 20, my own natural sebum was doing the exact same job of a premium, ultra-expensive hair mask. It was naturally smoothing the cuticle without any of that gross synthetic buildup. My frizz was virtually eliminated, and I suddenly had this effortless, bouncy, natural volume. As I entered the final stretch, days 22 to 30, the whole routine became incredibly easy. I'm talking zero effort easy. I was only rinsing with water maybe 3 to 4 times a week. My scalp felt completely balanced. And here's the craziest part. There was no bad odor. Surprisingly, human hair does not naturally smell bad at all, unless there's a fungal infection or trapped sweat that you're not mechanically washing away. Instead of smelling like artificial strawberries or synthetic coconuts, my hair just smelled like human. Just a really clean, neutral, natural scent. When day 30 finally arrived, I marched right back to my dermatologist to properly analyze the hard results. The microscopic imaging revealed a scalp that was deeply, intensely hydrated. It was completely free of the microabrasions typically caused by harsh scratching and toxic chemicals, and it had a perfectly intact moisture barrier. My hair follicles were beautifully unclogged, and there was absolutely zero sign of inflammation. My hair had completely self-regulated. It's super essential to understand, however, that this water-only approach is no some magical universal cure-all for every single person. Science tells us that bio-individuality plays a massive role here. If you have a diagnosed scalp condition like severe seborrheic dermatitis, eczema, or psoriasis, abruptly stopping your medicated treatments can lead to massive, painful flare-ups. Don't do that. Also, people with very fine, thin hair might find that their natural sebum just weighs their hair down way too much. On the flip side, people with thick, curly, or super coarse hair absolutely thrive on this method because their hair naturally craves that intense, deep moisture. Furthermore, the environment you live in matters a lot. If you live in an area with hard water, meaning water that's super high in calcium and magnesium,
those heavy minerals will instantly react with your natural sebum to create a waxy, sticky buildup that water alone simply cannot rinse away. In those cases, installing a high-quality shower filter is absolutely mandatory if you want to even attempt this experiment. So, what's the final verdict here? The 30-day water-only hair washing challenge completely shattered my deeply ingrained, socially conditioned belief that we absolutely need industrial detergents to be clean. It proved to me that the human body is an extraordinarily intelligent, totally self-regulating machine. When we just get out of its way and stop aggressively stripping it of its natural defenses, it knows exactly how to heal and balance itself.
I am not saying you need to throw away your shampoo forever and move into the woods, but perhaps we all need to seriously reconsider our daily consumer habits. Maybe washing your hair just once a week with a very gentle, sulfate-free cleanser is more than enough. Maybe you can incorporate water-only washes in between your regular routines just to give your poor microbiome a much-needed break. By reducing our heavy reliance on synthetic chemicals, we not only massively improve our own biological health, but we also stop flushing millions of gallons of toxic suds right into our natural environment. The entire cosmetics industry literally profits off our insecurities, creating the very problems they then turn around and sell us the expensive solutions for. Try extending the days between your washes. Trust your body. Brush meticulously. Let your natural biology do the heavy lifting. The results might just blow your mind. Let us dive a little deeper into the environmental and physiological implications before we wrap up. Think about the sheer, insane volume of plastic waste generated by shampoo and conditioner bottles globally every single year. We're talking billions of plastic containers ending up in landfills and choking our oceans. By transitioning to a water-only method, or at least significantly reducing the frequency of your chemical washes, you are taking a monumental, real-world step toward personal sustainability. Furthermore, let us really examine the actual chemicals we are actively rubbing into our scalps every morning. Many commercial shampoos contain nasty stuff like phthalates, parabens, and synthetic fragrances that have been shown in numerous scientific studies to act as severe endocrine disruptors. These are literally chemicals that can heavily interfere with your internal hormonal systems. Your scalp is incredibly vascular, it has a massive, rich blood supply, and the skin up there is highly permeable. Whatever you aggressively massage into your scalp can potentially find its absolute way straight into your bloodstream. By opting for water-only washing, you completely eliminate this totally unnecessary daily exposure to complex, unregulated cosmetic chemistry. Now, I know the biggest hurdle for most people watching this right now is the intense social anxiety of the transition phase. Nobody wants to go to work or school looking like they haven't showered in a week and smelling like a gym bag. If you are really determined to try the No-Poo method, I highly recommend starting during a vacation or maybe a period where you are strictly working from home. You can also totally utilize natural remedies to ease the awkward transition. For example, doing a heavily diluted apple cider vinegar rinse once a week can really help manually lower the pH of your scalp and dissolve some of that nasty hard water mineral buildup without stripping the sebum entirely. The acetic acid in the vinegar is a super mild, completely natural cleanser that actually respects and protects the acid mantle. In conclusion, this whole 30-day journey of washing my hair solely with water was a profound, life-changing lesson in biology, patience, and totally unlearning decades of heavy marketing propaganda. Our bodies are perfectly evolved to maintain themselves. Your natural sebum is literally the most expensive, highly engineered hair care product on the entire planet, and your body produces it totally for free. Give your scalp the chance to heal. Give your microbiome the space to finally balance out, and you might just discover that the thickest, healthiest hair of your entire life was hiding right underneath all that expensive shampoo. Stay healthy, stay curious, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.